Are you kidding me?
Make obscure story explained.
Try again. Alright, I will do it, so here you go.
It's hot summer at Leafmore High School. Psalm 41 is playing in your head, hot girls in miniskirts are here and there, and Kenny, a local star, is playing basketball with his friend Stan. While Kenny's sister, Shannon, is dying of boredom waiting for her brother. Josh is another senior who wants to become a journalist, filming the match to make a video about a local basketball team. Something like this you expect to see when you think about high school. But in fact, there is only a crazy train filled with pain, depression and suffering chasing after your ass. So today I'll show a guideline on how to survive these tough times by the example of Obscure 1 and 2. First, what you need to do is to play basketball until late midnight and have beef with your sister because of that, like Kenny does. After the play, he hears a ringing phone in the locker room. It's his girlfriend Ashley, who is upset about Kenny's short memory. While they're speaking, a locked character grabs Kenny's bag and goes away from the locker room. Kenny, of course, spots that and runs after the dark silhouette. And when I say he runs, I mean it, because he is the only character who can run. And here it's considered a special feature, so if somebody doesn't respect you, you can tell them you have a special ability of running too. Maybe they will change their mind. Maybe. Kenny goes outside the gymnasium and it's night already. He doesn't give up and keeps up following the robber. That's the first mistake. If it's night and you're alone at school, Psalm 41 isn't playing in your head anymore and you feel immortal. Turn around and go home ASAP to have more chances to live forever. Don't worry, your forever undone homework will be fine. But Kenny doesn't need anything to prove, he just needs his bag. So he goes deeper into trouble. He discovers inner gardens he has never seen before and an opened entrance to the dark basement near an abandoned mansion, which lures him straight away. Inside, he finds a gun and a flashlight, and also hears a monstrous growl down the ladder. And for him, that sounds okay. If you think the weapon and the light makes you invulnerable, that's the second hint to go away. But Kenny breaks all the rules. He tapes the weapon and the light up and climbs down. It's a sinuous tunnel with roots all over the place, and even this doesn't stop him. In the end of it, he finds a dark material sealing the door. Unfortunately, he has enough IQ to dismiss the darkness and go deeper. There, he finds an improvised medical room with cages and almost no light. The bag is worth risking life for, so with no second thought, he opens the door and finds himself in the cell room. In the corner there is a curled up half man, and I suppose due to his pale skin, half milk, which might mean he has been sitting here for a long time. He's mumbling something, asking to leave him alone. He is definitely on the brink of losing his mind, yet the prisoner pulls himself together and even wants to free himself from this place. He is shocked though that Kenny fell for this trap too. He doesn't want to explain himself and they open the door to save their lives. The teammate finds a gun, as he claims that his kidnapper hides it there. When they are going back, a hideous creature stands on their way. It's slow but scary as hell and is very difficult to slay. So eventually, Kenny and the prisoner are running out of bullets. Kenny goes down first, then the bald man. Screams of the creature are heard up the ladder when somebody closes the entrance, hiding their bodies and the worth dying for back down the tunnels. The next morning, Ashley and Shannon are highly disappointed because you still didn't subscribe to my channel and didn't give a like. Easy for you, a present for me, thanks. Also, Shannon is thinking about Kenny as he didn't show up at home and never came to Ashley. They start to worry about him. Leafmore principal Mr. Herbert Friedman asks the security guard to close the gates to the school and invites latecomers visit his office. At the biology lesson, girls learn that Josh hasn't seen Kenny too, which evokes even more questions and unease. Ashley wants to call cops, which is a brilliant idea, but Josh interrupts her, suggesting meeting at cafeteria at 6:13 p.m. Josh brings a camera to capture all the important events for his video. They hear that the guard is closing all the doors inside, which means the students have no way out. I have a choice between these three students, and I choose Josh to investigate the case, because his ability is to analyze the room and tell if there is something important left. And Ashley, who is a beauty and muscles of the team. I mean, she has increased damage and recovery of the health. Can you see how the bed bounces off the wall? Looks neat. I go to the boys' toilet to find Kenny there, just in case. On the walls there are posters made by students who believe there are paranormal creatures called butt faces all over the school. Girls, if you are watching this, that's exactly how this place looks like in real life. Then Ashley and Josh go to the second floor and see a closed door, marked by the dark matter from the man's room. There is a monstrous snarl behind it, Probably somebody is dropping a huge shit. They need to enter the room and find the source of the sound. For doing so, they have to find a key, which is somewhere in the teacher's room. When they get inside, they find a rusty key from the shitty door and a report card about all 5 students, which states that Kenny disappeared, and in theory, Stan could have disappeared too, because it won't make any difference, his education is pointless anyway. Also, they see Leafmore School's establishment documents. Turns out it was founded by 2 brothers Leonard and Herbert Friedman in 1899, but the game's year is 2004, so those brothers are approximately 160 years now. When they go outside the room, they experience an earthquake somewhere deep below the school. They go back to the stinky door and open it. It looks like an abandoned attic where everything looks safe. First 10 seconds. As later, Josh and Ashley are being attacked by butt faces and monsters are taking advantage. When it seems that Josh is going to be surrounded and eaten to death, biology teacher Danny Walden shows up to help and break the window, lightening the room. It seems that the monsters cannot bear the light and fall dead immediately. Mr. Walden is hurt but says not to worry and find the principal in his office at the classroom section. To help them, he opens the door to the courtyard. There, Josh, Ashley and Shannon are feeling safer as it's still sunny outside. Ashley is trying to call the cops, yet, due to absence of reception, the phone doesn't work. Now they are trapped and have no other way but try to find Kenny and the principal. On one of the benches, they find a disc which might be used to save the game once per usage, which in theory is quite an interesting idea. In a nutshell, you take a disc to save later, and then, when you are attacked by monsters, you forget about everything and die to replay about 30 minutes again. Being learned on your mistakes, you save your game immediately, which annuls all the novelty. However, a nice try. I am looking for the principal, but instead I see Stan, who is editing his notes in a teacher's computer. Stan is wondering why Ashley is at school so late, and she tells everything that had happened before. Yet Stan doesn't want to believe her, and after a snarl behind the wall, he quickly changes his mind. He joins the search team to find Kenny. His skill is lockpicking faster than others. They find old newspapers about 16 cases of mysterious disappearances around Leafmore High School, and the ignorant police who are doing nothing to find those students. According to Herbert Friedman, the principal, those crimes were chalked up to the mental patient who escaped the clinic, who later found peace. And it worked out, everybody believed. Stan and Ashley keep looking for the principal. They break a few vending machines to get some energy drinks and restore some health. At the end of the hall, they are ambushed by a huge monster which breaks the wall and leaves a passage behind its dead body. The way leads to a chemical lab where they find a bunch of butt faces and an acid container that is used to destroy the metal lock at the next door. In the same room, they find a document about a remarkable plant, Martifilia, that has an unbelievably positive reception to crossbreeding with other species and can increase longevity. However, it's highly sensitive to light and might fade in a matter of seconds. By filling up a cup with acid, they melt down the chain on the door and enter the second floor. There, they see a pale student with a knife in his hand. As monsters don't attack him, I decide to shoot him first and then the creatures. That raises a question, whether infected ones attack each other. When they open Herbert Friedman's office, it seems empty, but they find a few possible answers on what's going on out there. First, a map with a weird lock on it, and a picture with Herbert and his twin brother Leonard. Funny, but nobody has ever heard of him. Then, listening to a voicemail of Miss Wixon, a school nurse, they learn that she's in danger, and she witnessed experiments mutated from students to something else. By the magic of editing, Stan and Ashley find compass needles to open the map and the safe behind it. From there, they get an old piece of paper with text on it. From an Elizabeth to Herbert, about Leonard. He was so obsessed with his new experiment with the plants that he wanted to perform the experiment on himself, which is a big risk due to unknown secondary effects. It sheds light on possible circumstances on what happened to Leonard Friedman. There are also a powerful gun and a key from the library in the safe, which leads them to the next destination point. Outside, they experience even a stronger earthquake. Also, the longer they stay there, the stronger monsters rise up on the surface. So, in the library section, they see another experiment sitting on the stairs. When they come closer to ask if everything is alright, he spreads black substance out of him and mutates to a hideous abomination. Inside the library, students find an old paper issued in 1968, where on the front page they see an article about Leonard Friedman, who was a professional pilot. The twins had an enigmatic plane crash in the sea, and only Herbert could survive. Speaking about the principal Herbert, he is calmly writing something in the corner of the library. The only thing that bothers him now, it's not monsters crawling all over the place, and Walden who is still at the school, but 4 students staying so late at their own place. He commands to go and see the security guard who will open the gates and release them. Then he quickly goes off, leaving even more questions. On the table they find his diary, which says about the Mortifilia trees more. It was first discovered on the island in the middle of nowhere in 1895. Locals didn't show much joy helping with studying these trees, especially later when they lost 2 porters and found a corpse near the trees. Yet Herbert and Leonard were satisfied with the results found during the vegetation period of this plant. Apparently it has ability to accelerate its own growth, anyway flourishing almost forever. After reading first time in his life, Stan gained some bravery and flips the script to come and pay a visit to the guard. When they come closer to the office, they hear screams and gunshots, and then deafening silence. Inside, they witness what's left from the security guard. Unfortunately, it cannot open anything anymore. They grab keys from the gates, but before leaving, they take a look at the screens of surveillance cameras. They see nurse Miss Wixon, who by her look asks for help. On the way here, I'd found another tape which shows that night when Kenny was lured to the trap by somebody, but he also was being followed by Friedman, who later closed the locked chamber. They also find a tape called Subject 37. When they play it, it comes clear that Kenny is still alive and closed somewhere behind the bars. So instead of saving their own lives, they decide to risk everything and save their friend. Tip number something. If you decided to stay and help your friend to save his life from bad faces, try to be ready and equip anything you find useful. A shotgun, for instance. The way to the sick bay lies through the dining hall, where new types of creatures appear. My theory is that those flies ate a big portion of load from man's room to evolve to these nasty things, making their only touch a topic to be ashamed of. Miss Wixon doesn't want to open the doors until the lights are on, so the students fix it and enter the bay. When she is saved, she starts to panic even more, telling straight nonsense about Herbert, who is responsible for kidnappings and Kenny's disappearances particularly. Also about Leonard, who wants to get out. The question is it a rubbish or a real trouble and sleepless nights for me? Keep watching and you will see. On her table they find a letter from Herbert to Elizabeth. That means she is that Elizabeth Wixon who was in relationship with Leonard Friedman. And judging by her appearance, she looks rather young. That means she also took part in the experiments of twin brothers. She says nothing and keeps silent. However, if she didn't, I wouldn't understand a thing, because I installed the game on an SSD, so the voice lines overlaying one another, making one more nightmare for me figuring out what they wanna say.
Kenny? Herbert?
Herbert?
He never let them
So
out
that's the
before.
freak that kidnapped
It's
Kenny?
Leonard.
Anyway, in the letter, they find out that the breach of monsters took place as biology teacher Mr. Walden left the locked chamber opened because he knew something terrible was going on. He risked putting up everything and everybody in danger. Later they see Mr. Walden in the teacher's room. He is looking for Herbert, and when Stan tells him where to find the principal and about Kenny's situation, surprised Walden gives away a key to open the basement at the amphitheater and leaves the place in a hurry. The amphitheater looks calm, like before the storm, and reflexively, I wanted to leave the place right away. Even though the place is empty, it holds one of the most sinister creatures in it. Using the film projector, they take a look at a film reel they had found before. They see the results of experimenting Mortifilia on people. Injected with the spores of this plant, the guinea pig loses control, making him aggressive. Probably it's a defensive reaction against the sunlight. However, Leonard didn't seem to be afraid of the consequences and injected the prototype serum himself, which, on the light, altered his look immediately.
A few hundred hours in Premiere Pro and you will be able to do the same. Editing without hands.
The students meet the consequences of Leonard's deeds on the second floor. Perhaps the monster evolved from a woman to an amorphous blob, spreading roaches around her. It cannot move, only suffer and swallow dozens of bullets, until it finally dies. But the body is never disappearing away, making the air heavier, like she is, of the thought that any second she might wake up and catch me like a Venus flytrap. She unlocks the ladder, and by a simple manipulation with an elevator, the students get an access to the basements. But first, the elevator must be blocked to prevent any unexpected deaths. Now they are free to get Kenny out of this hell. This place is a chain of tunnels connected with cages, cells and labs. In one of those places they find more gruesome results of research of Herbert on Leonard Friedman. After a few months of experiencing the injection, Leonard's skin began to cover with melanoma because of ultraviolet radiation, which started severe and unstoppable mutations. It looks like a real xeroderma pigmentosum condition. You'd better not Google it. The condition characterized by an extreme sensitivity to ultraviolet rays from sunlight. Herbert kept conducting the experiment for 24 years and realized that he wouldn't be able to live long enough to cure his brother, so he decided to inject himself and remain in shadows until treatment is discovered. To do so, he needed more guinea pigs, so he opened the school. Later, Mr. Walden found out about the experiments and tried to stop his employer, leaving the basement door open. Because of that, all over the place, Stan and Josh faced the second stage of mutated students, Cthulhu-like revolting creatures with tentacles, which we'd seen already. After all, they find Kenny, who is relatively safe. When the rescue team enters the cage, Friedman drops a sleeping gas, and later they become guinea pigs themselves. As Stan has been a professional truant, nothing can stop him from leaving something relatively as long as lesson, so they quickly find a way out. Unfortunately, all of them are doomed, as they had been infected, and since now the sunlight can transform them into monsters. Getting their stuff together, they visit the nurse, but she is heavily injured and dying. She says about an antidote in another basement at the gardens. Her death means that infected monsters do attack other infected ones, even after a long incubation period. Back in the labs, they'd found notes of one of the future experiments, Alan, who gathered all the info on twin brothers. Even though he describes mostly everything I'd found before, he added a few pieces to the whole puzzle. In a nutshell, Leonard's body had been never found after the plane crashed, and there were 27 cases of disappearances overall. Also, Elizabeth Wixon was a wife of Leonard, not just a girlfriend. In my opinion, at first, she didn't want to have an injection, but later was convinced to do it, being promised eternal youth and beauty. Finally, the twins wanted to join scientific circles to perform experiments, officially promising eternal life to anybody. But after scientists saw outcomes of test subjects, they banned them from scientific world forever and ordered the police to take away all Friedman's equipment. Alan also attached pictures of mutated students trying to prove the publicity that twin brothers kept performing their atrocities. But again, the police never started an investigation. The brothers had some power to pull the strings. The most important in Alan's lock is the hint on how to open the digital lock and open another entrance to the second basement. The students have to go through the library, where they face Mr. Walden. Exchanging the news, it turns out he has been infected too. Hearing about the antidote, he loses his mind. He is getting even crazier when he sees the map of the basement. He grabs it and runs away, closing the doors behind him. Wherever, who needs a map? The second entrance lies at the place where Kenny was kidnapped, which means trouble. Down there are moving roots all over the place, and mutated students everywhere again. There are also notes of Herbert, who went too far with his experiments and perhaps even forgot about curing his brother for some time, as he started to develop new types of infections and putting them into varied hostile surroundings, which led to a creation of bad faces, mutated flies and swollen women lying around. Since now I realize that the most useful team members are Josh and Shannon, as she can tell what we need to find and where. In other words, a living quest log. And Josh is an item detector. They're moving on to deeper levels to the room with big roots and a huge metal door, which restrains something ominous behind it. They use 4 statues they'd found before to activate the mechanism and open the gates. It happens exactly when Mr. Walden approaches it. There is Herbert Friedman holding a briefcase with an antidote. When Walden sees it, he's threatening Herbert with a gun to give it to him. But the principal explains that Walden has already started to mutate and the antidote won't make any good. Losing his mind teacher doesn't want to listen and shoots Herbert. While he is vigorously injecting the medicine, something is watching him high above. It's a living root that penetrates Mr. Walden and is twirling his body like a puppet until he's completely dead. When the rescue team comes back to the gates, they see dead biology teacher and the reasons of all earthquakes behind his body. The reason of all of this, as you might guess, is Leonard, who mutated to a big ugly tree. Herbert is still alive and says sorry for almost getting it done and curing Leonard. The not-so-twin brother anymore maybe lost part of his human mind, however understands that his brother is dead and now he is screwed up. Shannon and Josh attack Leonard and his myriads of limbs. The logic is simple. Unlike Resident Evil games where you always need to aim at eyes or glowing spots, here you are trying to shoot off the parts of his body which are uncovered with tree bark. Between those parts you also need to hide in the light, because Leonard spreads black spores that damage you. Closer to the end, I felt that it might be my end too, as I was slowly running out of bullets and first aid kits. However, the nature saved me. Turned out the ceiling was flimsy enough to collapse when Leonard was fiddling with his snacks too much. After the darkest night there is always a brighter day, so Leonard is buried under the ruins of the school. The students have survived and Stan doesn't need to study anymore, because the school will be closed anyway. Happy end! Now they feel free to inject the antidote and go home. But Leonard doesn't think so. He isn't dead yet and takes revenge on them. He chose the worst spot for his rematch, and slowly being exposed to the light, he is finishing off himself. He is screaming in agony for a second, making you feel sorry for him and his brother. Scientists at first, who just wanted to study a new mystery plant, developing immortality in the process. But then you switch back and realize all the horror and lost lives they've brought. But because of Kenny's stolen red bag, it was the last straw to pay them back. After Leonard put at rest, Ashley and Kenny are swabbling each other tonsils, and Shannon is checking on Josh. While Stan throws his hand in the air, realizing that the only day he decided to stay at school longer than usual and not skipping lessons turned out to be a nightmare. We see tunnels again where routes are dying out and the classrooms that looked as dreadful as before the incident. Stan is taking a briefcase, but something dark pushes him aside, meaning the story is not finished yet. Frankly speaking, the ending reminds me of this GIF. It's going on and on and on and cannot hit the end. But now that's the end of the first game for sure. A little summarizing before I start the second part of the video. First, I like the setting of the school. You hardly ever see such games and it always feels like a breath of fresh air. It's worth mentioning the game was inspired by the movie The Faculty. Stan even looks like Josh Hartnett, so the vibes of the sinister evil waiting at the next classroom is doubled, as you are familiar with this environment and can immerse yourself in those surroundings. Second, attention to small details. As I said before, for example, when a bed bounces off the wall, chairs, boxes and stuff lying around are interactable and have different sounds. And no man, those sounds and noises are a game changer. That wouldn't be a completed game without this. I'm quite sure I've heard the same screams when we had an algebra exam at school. By the way, that's one of a very few games which you could play together with your friend. I cannot describe the emotions when you are in this nightmare together. I cannot describe it because I never had a chance to play it together with my wife or friends. Nobody of them like it or exist. Still, it can deliver the experience of the horror, making it even stronger when you play with your friends, adding a lot more fun to it at the same time. Alright, let's move on to the second game. The second game is called The Obscure The Aftermath. It's been 2 years since the incident at Leafmore High. Stan works as a delivery guy and tries to get rid of memories of that horrible night, after which he did a lot of bad stuff and ended up in prison. But he served his time and now wants to keep on living. He drives by Fall Creek University. At the students' dormitory, a couple, Corey and May, are going to have some drinks at Swan's room, another local student. It's evening, so it means that it's about time to wake up, to have the best time of their lives. Some of them are having a sexual beef with their girlfriends, some with their friends, and so on. May and Corey are moving through the beefeatery and open Swan's door. Newcomers are long waited, and as they step over a doorway, Swan palms them on, smelling herbs made of local flowers, a brand new drug around the university. Inside the room there are Swan's crush, Amy, and May's sister, June. Suddenly Kenny shows up to smell it too, but cannot taste it enough as Shannon grabs him off. As we see, they enroll to Fall Creek University, so all other guys had better clutch their sphincters. The friends in the room wonder about Delta Theta Gamma Brotherhood's party they intend to break in. Except Corey, who is taking a big hit of herbs falling to the heavy trip. He finds himself at the shore. After taking a bath, he goes deeper to the woods to find May. They find a mannequin graveyard and a bloody creature dragging a body bag with somebody alive inside. They follow a creep and come at abandoned hospital or such. There are blood and corpses hanging on the walls. Everything we are used to seeing at this point, but it still gives me the shivers. Then they see June, who is missing a half of her body and asking for help. At this point you lose the connection with the reality. It makes you wonder if it's still an awful trip or a foresight. Maybe it's a feedback response to external stimuli called Sven, who is probably pranking Corey right now at the room. Anyway, Corey and May come at the rooted dirty hole with a huge flower at the center and a dead body of Amy in it. She gives a speech about the pleasures she received after the flower opened its petals for her and a new flower that will be accessible for everybody. Out of the dark hallway they see a mutated monster from Leafmore High. Even though they are fighting back, neither Corey's shotgun nor May's bat work, and when she is being eaten alive, Corey comes back to senses, boozing toilet water instead of beer. It's dark outside and pain inside, hence he takes a holy energy juice and weakness wears off. Corey has lost his keys somewhere and without them he cannot return at Sven's room. He decides to check on May and uses his inner talent, acrobatic abilities developed through skateboarding background. They allow him to jump higher, hold onto ledges and move along them. May is knocked out as well, and Corey gives her the energy drink and offers to visit Delta Theta Gamma party. Like it isn't enough headache yet, May, feeling better, answers yes, and leaving her twin sister alone, they drive to the party spot. At the frat house, Kenny and May are trying to get inside from the front door, but they're not members of the Brotherhood, so the bouncer politely says them to get lost. However, they know the ways. Here, Kenny finally is not completely useless, and instead of running fast, he can move heavy objects to make a way. They get inside the building, to a study room. At the moment, flowers growing outside blossom and open their petals, spreading dark spores. They fly through the opened window nearby. Screams of students imply that bad luck comes in threes. The spores also affect my game, and I start to see these glitches for some time. Inside the study, Amy uses her talent to see hidden message on the table, which shows a code from the safe. In the hall outside the study, there is a wounded girl holding her shoulders and insists on being careful as something is coming after them. So they need to open a safe in the billiards room to even the score. In the games room there are flowers on the wall, and when Kenny and Amy inhale them, they fall unconscious with a distinctive sound, giving me an opportunity to save the game, but only once per usage, like in the first game with the discs. Later in the save they take a gun, giving Kenny another chance to find his rat back once again. Going back to the hall, a huge monstrosity that once used to be a wounded student shuffles towards them. Kenny, being familiar with such creatures, shoots it dead, and then tells a little story about the college events that are thought to be a myth. When they come downstairs, they notice small spiders and an injured footless guard. He is still alive though. He doesn't speak or make any sounds, just follows the students with his eyes and is bound to guard for the rest of his life. Seeing the bloodshed, Amy is panicking and Kenny soothes her, as he is second to none at putting down his fellow students, so she has nothing to worry about. Next, in the library they are attacked by the mutated spiders, or moving hands, that behave exactly like butt faces from the Leafmore High. While Kenny is moving shelves back and forth to solve a puzzle and make a path, Amy says that the Brotherhood is 200 years old and that all of them are obliged to help each other like a family, and they invite only the chosen ones. Their mission is to exceed their own limits, putting humanity at the first place, following altruism and philanthropy before anything else. Going to the last floor, they find a way to the attached building and find an office of the Brotherhood's mentor and the university's biology professor, Richard James. He seems to wait somebody else, but when the monster gets closer to Kenny and Amy, he warns them and his face stains with blood. It's unknown what happened to them. However, later Corey arrives with two his favorite girls, May and his muscle car. At the entrance they realize that the party has been finished because there are no light and no music. Oh, and also there are corpses everywhere. I must say, with those games, my sense of humor is getting darker. May immediately wants to leave, but Corey has to find out what happened to the others. Safety rule number something. See the dead bodies? Call the cops and hire a lawyer, preferably the ones who have big guns to come and save you. They can enter through the main door, but not because the bouncer has lost his job, but because May is a skillful hacker and can crack any digital lock with her pocket computer. Inside they witness the consequences of what university parties do with people. Later in the courtyard they meet Kenny and Amy, who fortunately survived. and also biology professor Richard, who researches the monster. He calls him the runner because they are highly powerful and agile to the point that they can dodge bullets. He learns that the creature was a man once, and Corey, seeing its tattoo, realizes that once it was student Matt. Together they conclude that it was caused by the flowers around the campus and the drugs they made of it. May assumes that the energy drinks they had fights off a headache and maybe it prevents them from going crazy. Yet only Kenny feels no changes. Mr. Richard tells them how to find the exit and commits to test Flowers and the ex-students. But before they leave, he gives them a syringe which is used to take blood from the monsters. He explains them the structure of monsters' blood and proteins contained near to their hearts. With this syringe, they will be able to create a serum and heal themselves, which is rather confusing as to how he could examine the blood without special equipment. The way to the exit lies through the dance hall, where the black spores block their way, but Kenny uses his knowledge of how to use light against that thing and finds the way out. Outside they meet Sven, who is late at the party. Seems he is lucky to be a latecomer. Suddenly, somebody steals Corey's car in attempt to escape the slaughterhouse and nearly runs Sven over. The hijacker drives to the woods and Corey sees Red as his second favorite girl cheated on him, runs after it, with Amy following. May tries to stop them, but she gets a call on a walkie-talkie from June, who woke up literally in the nightmare. She is in the dorm, surrounded by monsters, which consume unlucky ones who couldn't escape. She is asking for help, so May and Sven go back to save her. When they split up, Kenny feels bad because the past haunts him, Stannon, Shannon and others forever. In other words, they have to take medicine to prevent mutation. Unfortunately, Kenny didn't take them for quite some time. He quickly needs to the hospital, but nobody listens to him. Meanwhile, Corey and Amy are going through the forest. Even though he worries about the car, what's more relevant right now is the shotgun his father gave him that now is lying in the trunk. On the way through the woods, they find an old newspaper which reports about a 7th assault on passerby by a stocky man with a deformed face. Later, they find Corey's baby. Seeing somebody insulted on her black and white hood and polished glasses, he is screaming in pain. It attracts mutants from the forest, and Corey is fearlessly firing back. And Amy is just Amy. Corey finds a chainsaw to cut in half both trees lying on the way and creatures. When they reach the car, the hijacker, who supposedly was a woman, has already suffered far worse outcome than death. She is still alive and turns against the students. Even though I obtained a shotgun, I use the chainsaw instead, and oh boy, it saves a lot of bullets. Then, deeper in the forest, they encounter the creep from the newspaper, who is dragging a body bag somewhere. They cannot make up their mind what to do next as something ambushed them, a mutant harpy-like creature. It's obvious it mutated from a woman, but the size of the body was drastically minimized, making all her abdomen one big jaw. When the fight is over, they lose the sight of the freak and move on, eventually ending up at the hospital, where they find an operating walkie-talkie. It gets May's distress signal, asking for help. She is with Swan by the university dorm, and they are about to save June. Meanwhile, Kenny and Shannon are looking for the medicine at the same clinic where Corey and Amy at. Kenny is desperately going through the shelves, but neither he nor Shannon can find anything. Kenny sees one more walkie-talkie under the hospital bed and adjusts the signal. Suddenly, Stan receives a distorted message. At the dorm, Swan and May have to shake a leg because May is in a grave danger. To keep us informed, on the screen you can see the red line that is going to 0. If it does, this happens. But let's pretend it didn't, so I saved her. Or did I?
June, tell me you're okay.
She is fine, but is stuck in the basement and cannot find the way out. Sven and May use a CCTV to lead her. Here everything plays against me, as I have to control June and setting up the signal at the same time. So I will be able to see her. It goes without saying, she is vulnerable, and I am stupid enough not to run away, but fight back every monster on my way. I don't know how, but I made it on the first try and found the main switch to open the door for Sven and May to come and save the day. Now all the troubles stay behind. I mean, literally, there is something behind June that grabs her, leaving us in the dark. There is enormous quantity of mutants down there in the labyrinth. The only unwarranted clue that leads them now is a cry of June, who is begging for mercy. They find her after all, but she is brutally murdered. May doesn't want to leave her sister, but Sven, hearing growls somewhere nearby, forces May to leave. It's unexpected to see her death. Even though you tried doing your best, that's the only outcome for her in the game. I couldn't expect such a turn, that one of the main characters would die. So from now on, it feels like a slightly more serious game and a brave idea of developers. Yet, there is more to come. Back in the hospital, Corey and Amy take a look at research of the toxic flower on the human bodies. It's said that the virus mainly develops among people who have a lack of moral standards, enjoy binge drinking and unprotected intercourse. At the same time, this disease eliminates other STDs, like it gets rid of the competition. What's more, the infection is boosted up by a collective psychosis, which is highly unusual, as it causes sexual anxiety, and on the other hand, a hyperactive libido. From the files, it gets clear some of the students suffer from recurring nightmares. Those symptoms are perfect ingredients for a ticking virus bomb. Sounds ridiculous, but after everything we've seen in the game, I'm not surprised at all. You might ask, and why Amy or Sven don't develop the symptoms or disease doesn't show up itself? Well, it's interesting to note that Amy looks like that only because she wants to hide her nerdiness and the desire to study, and it proves her ability to solve puzzles. Judged by her relationship, she still cannot make up her mind about Sven, whether date him or not, because he is just a friend. Speaking about Sven, when it comes to girls, he is very shy and not decisive, yet he binge drinks, so his case is questionable. In that scary place, even before the virus, they encounter the source of those small white spiders. They are spat out from a big V of a woman transformed into this spider creature that is always pregnant. Corey gets a call from Richard James, a biology professor, who conducted the research and found out flower's origins and its effects on a human body. Corey has no idea what he has to do with this info and invites Richard to the hospital to help them. Turns out he is already there, in the lab, on the ground floor, safe and sound. How convenient, he always has all the equipment and never needs help. Shannon has a talk with Kenny about his unwillingness to suppress the symptoms. He cannot believe in his strength and admits he was always the weakest one. Couldn't restore his red back, had an ability of running for only 2 seconds, while others were really useful, so he cannot take it anymore. And Shannon puts oil on the fire, saying that if he didn't smoke those herbs, he would be able to stand it longer. But now everything has been drastically worse, and if Kenny doesn't fight back, he's gonna die. What happens next catches me off guard. In some way, he dies, I mean his human part, but his dark side comes out, making him mutate into something terrible. When Corey and Amy enter the room, it's too late for Kenny, so waiting no more, they're trying to save their life, while Shannon is doing her best to help her brother. But it's too late already. I'm running through the hall and hear screams of Shannon. That must be the answer. What happened to her? Corey and Amy find the elevator, but of course it's broken, and I have to solve some mind-blowing puzzle. As I'm not Einstein, I cannot do it. Luckily, the game knows that, and it doesn't let me die, saving me anyway. When they reach the basement, Richard greets them like nothing had happened, and later Sven and May arrive in the hospital. The friends are happy to see each other, but the death of June leaves a bad taste in their mouths. They need to move on and break the way, literally explode the wall, because they are trapped and surrounded by monsters, and Kenny is lurking out there, so they need another way out. Richard knows how to build up a homemade device while looking for ingredients for a dynamite. They find a new research about the flower. It's estimated that it's weak to light, but in case of danger, closes its petals, defending exposed cells. Also, it's pointless to fight every root separately, as it will recover and grow again. So the only way to destroy it once and for all is to find the source, yet a root system is too complicated to track it down. I make a homemade Coca-Cola with ice to tear down the wall.
Look out! It's about to blow!
Nice fireworks.
Going through the warehouse, they are ambushed by mutated Kenny. First, he knocks out Sven and Amy, and then Richard, leaving only Corey and May to flip the script. I knew something like this would happen one day, so I've collected the most powerful weapon for this ugly douchebag. It takes me seconds to get rid of him, but when it's almost finished, he fights back and throws Corey on a metal bar. Then he pushes May down the ground and keeps pressing on her head until she's sent to heavens. The game is getting up steam I couldn't imagine. Kenny is getting ready to eliminate anybody, until Shannon and Stan come to give a hand to their human friends. When the fight starts, Stan makes a backflip to show supremacy. Maybe you remember, Martiphilia plant boosts aggression, so does this flower, as Kenny doesn't feel the limits. Eventually, Stan and Shannon take the victory, but the price is too high. May is dead, Corey is injured, and all others suffered more than enough. They are leaving the place in Stan's van, where all the students are mourning about the recent recent events. Stan finds the picture of Josh, Shannon, Ashley, him and Kenny before he turned into a ghoulish gorilla. When the future was unknown and didn't become an endless nightmare, Stan is making eyes at Shannon. A second is enough to miss the creature on the road and go down the cliff. Nobody died, but Sven, Amy and Corey have fainted, so Richard promises to take care of them, while Corey and Shannon are going to look around. As Stan joins the team, the troubles begin, as he can lockpick. Unfortunately, in the prison he enhanced his skills, and unlike the first game, now I have to participate in the process. In a nutshell, I need to move a pin through teeth of a lock until it reaches the hole. It sounds interesting and feels exciting, but wait until the end, it will become pain in the neck. Back in the present, I lose the point where they are heading to. Maybe just go with the flow. Stan finds this place familiar and remembers that there is an old dam nearby. That's where they can move injured friends. Inside the dam, there is a door with black spores, and that's where Shannon's infection of Martiphilia comes in handy. She can dismiss the spores, making the way. Next, they find a control room, where they operate all the doors and main functions of the facility. In there, they accidentally see Amy behind the window, but she is supposed to be in the van. Also at the same time, Stan is feeling bad, and I suppose his virus is breaking through. It's unknown whether he can manage it or not. Shannon is asking for rescue, and Sven and Corey are moving to them. Making their way through pain, suffering and death, they reach the control room. I find Amy, but she seems to be mentally traumatized and in shock. Sven takes her away, and that's where Kenny appears to stop them. Here it is, Richard saves them again like an angel. So Stan, Sven and Amy are going away, and Shannon and Corey are staying for revenge. As you see, bullets don't make much damage to him anymore, so he needs something heavier. After all, the ground goes away under his legs and he falls down the darkness. Then Sven contacts Corey and he is happy to hear them alive. He tells them where to find the rest of the group. On the Turtlestone Island, a very popular local place for tourists. The more tourists, the more mutated ones. And by the way, this island also plays a big role in the story. They reach this island on the boats, and on the shore they find a horrible sign, a dead body. That looks like Josh from the first game. Also the character says about the feeling of deja vu. Between the horrors, Shannon and Corey have a little talk, which shows that Shannon has a crush on Stan, which is positively approved by Corey. The thing I like about him and Sven is that no matter what, they always stay positive and try to keep up the mood, which helps them to stay strong. They end up meeting Stan and Richard, and according to this cute dialogue, Stan falls for Shannon too. I'm afraid about them now. In this game, love means trouble. Suddenly, the group hears a scream. A few hours earlier, Sven and Amy were sailing to the Turtlestone Island. Amy said that Kenny impregnated her. Sven is supporting her that she is a real warrior, a Valkyrie, and her voice immediately changed from depressed to joyful. On the island, they find a graveyard. There is a puzzle which must be finished to open the hidden path and get to the abandoned house. As Amy thinks, they will be able to find the police there. Yeah, still operating police station that looks like an abandoned mansion in order to keep these guys. Near the house they encounter mutated students from Leafmore. Looks like the police, right? And inside they find a greenhouse with a hazardous flower. Amy comes to the conclusion that anybody who lives there will be able to help them. At this point, I start to think that pregnancy changed her mindset. The rescue turns out to be the maniac from the newspapers. He attacks Sven first, and by being a decoy, Sven saves Amy. The last thing he hears before being knocked out is Amy's voice. When the other team of Shannon and Stan arrives to the island, she asks why are they still here, just to suffer, and Stan has the answer. They didn't survive adolescence just to die here. Shannon doesn't want to survive, she wants to live, and they kiss. Maybe the last time in their life. Because in this world, even love might be harmful now. They come to the graveyard and recall familiar faces, or what's left of them. As a result, they enter the house and Corey and Richard are already there. They also find Amy hiding in the closet. They are hearing dreadful screams of Sven. He is being tortured right at the moment. While looking for ways to save him, I am accompanied with his agonized cry, chainsaw noises, and heavy footsteps of the deformed maniac somewhere. In this place I find his notes. From them I understand that we have the same level of English and that his name is Jedediah. He is underdeveloped and feels that everybody is mean to him, so he needs to punish them. I find his old picture, and you know, they say that children look cute. not this one. This maniac understands that to the point that he even broke the mirrors everywhere. One small detail I've noticed is that there are the same photos of people as in the university. Coincidence? I don't think so. From his papers, I learned that when his mom was alive, some people came, and he didn't like it much. He doesn't understand who they were. Maybe they were doctors who tried to help, as except all other issues, after his parents died, he had bad dreams, and then only the flower could let him sleep. He was left alone and had to survive. Without knowing it, constant affection of the flower made him angrier. That's why he attacked people without a second thought, and maybe even went eating them. Jedediah writes that he had found his father alive, dreaming with flowers, whatever it means. And what does biology professor think about it? He gives an improved syringe to collect serum faster to make a better healing portion. Alright, your bribe slower my suspicious about you. In the basement, they find altars that block the way to the torture room. With the help of the picture I'd found before, I place them in the right order, and the door opens. Sven is hanging on the hook, but he's not dead. The freak stabs him one last time and runs away to the tunnels, while Stan and Shannon are running after him. Sven, covered in blood, lying on the ground, says last goodbye to Amy, who is crying over his disfigured body. I believed till the last second he would survive after all. The couple is looking for revenge down in the tunnels. The place looks oddly familiar, as well as monsters they encounter. Who would have thought that they find themselves at Leafmore High, in the teacher's room, now abandoned and forgotten for good. The first thing they see after they eliminated the monsters are their marks, which remind Stan about his education. I'm sure the thoughts of Leafmore that haunt him till this day are not about monsters. I cannot tell that I have been missing this place. It gives me shivers even during editing this video. They walk through familiar places. After all these years, they have to witness their nightmare once again. In the courtyard, they see Amy, Corey and Richard, and all of them are sure the freak is still there. Suddenly, Amy feels labor pains. Something terrible is growing inside her. Immediately after Richard says he's lying, she acts normal, like after a stop word.
Contractions?
It seems that the school had to be demolished, but before that, parents tried to retrieve old cases of disappearances, but everything was abrupted in between due to unknown parasite infection in the basement. Or, as one of parents thinks, somebody in high places pulls the strings. The start of demolition brought to light never found before texts hidden under the ruins. So Stan and Corey find another letter. It's Leonard's one. Back in 1903, many years later after injecting martiphilia and knowing nothing about consequences, he couldn't tolerate light anymore and his body was morphing into a terrible piece of tumors. He knew soon he would lose the ability to move, so he wrote this letter to explain himself. He couldn't change anything as the serum wasn't developed and anger inside him was growing day by day. Sadly, he made one unforgivable mistake, having a sexual intercourse with his wife Elizabeth, being already infected, which gave a life to his son Jedediah, who was underdeveloped since the birth and inherited negative side effects of martiphilia, becoming very aggressive at times. It goes without saying they became victims of their own mistakes. Eventually they find Jedediah and his father, Leonard. He survived because Jedediah crafted flowers grown around Fall Creek. With new mutations, Leonard not only survived, but spread the plague around the whole state. The battle has two phases. First one is fighting with Leonard's limbs and then cut them off with a chainsaw. And the next phase when Jedediah is protecting his father, attacking the students with his chainsaw. As current Leonard and Jedediah together have 2 IQ, 1 point for each, Stan and Corey have no troubles taking revenge. But in the end, the cursed child fights back Corey and they cross their chainsaws. While Stan is, what? Filming this, or what is he doing? Where is he? After all, Jedediah's misery life is ended and he rests in peace surrounded by his father. So do flowers and the virus, as the source was eliminated. Remember in the first game Herbert said it was a mental patient who kidnapped people? I suppose we've got the answer who this patient was. Now the kidnappings are stopped for good and the students can rest. Corey and Stan go back to their friends who are waiting for them at the parking lot, because help has finally arrived to save their lives. That's the end of the second game. Wait a second. What's that track? The track that brings an incredible plot twist after titles. The help has arrived, but not what everybody had expected. Those guys are under control of Richard. They take Amy, who is unconscious. All this time Richard and his Delta Theta Gamma Brotherhood were behind this. His project was experimenting multiphilia all alone. And when Friedman's failed, Richard faced a misfortune. But then Kenny mutated and impregnated Amy, which gave them a new beginning to continue their morbid project. That's why mostly all this time he did nothing. In fact, he was only in danger when Kenny attacked him. All other time he was surprisingly relaxed, like everything was according to the plan. Now they are taking 4 survivors with them, leaving no witnesses. Shannon and Stan in one ambulance car. He gives up and throws away his pills that he has to take, and Shannon falls asleep. Perhaps due to Stan's stress, or Shannon who lost control of her powers, dark spores block their car, and they experience a car crash. Luckily, they survive. Stan finds an occult medallion and takes it with him just in case. And then he gets a call on his walkie-talkie. Corey also managed to escape, but he couldn't retrieve Amy, so they took her. The couple has no ways to protect themselves, so they run away from the monsters standing on their way. After all, they escape and end up at Fall Creek middle-class dungeon where everything had started. Inside, they intercept a signal of Richard, who is calling a helicopter to the Fall Creek Stadium to pick up a new specimen. That's where Stan and Shannon have to move next. They find another medallion at a dead member of the rescue team. Those things represent keys, which are used to enter the main hall of Delta Theta Gamma building. Inside, it looks like a ceremonial room. What's more, they find a museum of mutated people and documents that cover all the activity of the Brotherhood since 1903, when current President of America, Theodore Willage, pledged loyalty to them, providing all means possible and impossible to conduct their experiments. A year later, Friedman brothers made a breakthrough in studying multiphilia, and 96 brother countries joined the Brotherhood to have a piece of promised immortality. When children started to disappear, it was a part of a sinister plot, so the parents were right all this time. In the same room they find a crate with a weapon inside, and if you could open all of them during the game, you will have a look on what happened to Josh and Ashley. After Leafmore events, they started dating and went to Leafmore High to picture ruins for their summer project. Unfortunately for them, Jedediah was doing his summer project too, of collecting as many victims as possible. And of course he bumped into them. Maybe that corpse we saw before was Josh after all. Ashley's fate is a mystery, or better be prayed for. Deeper in the cathedral there is a library with many occult books meant to uncover the veil of immortality. There is one more essential book that explains their dogmas. They have to sacrifice anything for the benefit of humanity, including, if necessary, humans themselves, overcoming ignorance and arrogance of humanity for inclusive prosperity. Step by step, Stan and Shannon are heading to the stadium where Amy has to be taken. Instead of her, they see Corey sitting on his knees and Kenny, who is goddammit still alive. Even though the two came to help, the disfigured gorilla wants to absorb Corey and become one. Corey doesn't think so and seeing no point of living anymore without his 2 beloved girls, puts a bullet in his head, painting the ground red. Now only Stan and Shannon are last people standing. Can you imagine, the most of the main characters have been sent to the graveyard. Once I said that Stan's ability is going to become pain in the neck. This time the battle with Kenny takes 4 stages. He must be weakened and immobilized, while Shannon and Stan team up to pull levers and drop the lights on Kenny. First time it's relatively easy, as the first switch box door is opened by itself. Second one is broken by Kenny, third one is covered in the dark spores, so Shannon has to remove it, and the last one, as you've already guessed, is locked, so Stan has to sleep a lock. I wish you knew how stressful and irritating it is, especially when you run out of bullets. Finally I made it and dropped lights on him. Before being converted to manure, he asks to take care of his child, as the family is getting bigger at this moment. The couple is looking up and sees the helicopter flying to the sky. There Amy is giving birth to the dark spores, and they spread out all over the place, exploding the helicopter with her and Richard inside. The survived look at the performance and kiss each other, before all skies clouding up with a myriad of spores. They come hand in hand, ready to face the apocalypse and the third game. Little did they know, only these would be released. The truck has finally hit the post, and basically all the characters are dead, as with the last game the hopes and heroes committed teleportation to the graves. Also it means I'm a bad instructor, as I promised an efficient manual, but most of them are dead. Anyways, I wish the genuine third game would be released one day, even though the surface looks alike Resident Evil franchise. Obscure, has its own student atmosphere, sense of humor and survival setting. I enjoyed most of the time of it, and probably went grey a little because of this creepy ASMR. As a result, it has felt like a brand new experience. If you know other games which are your personal best, tell me, I would consider them with much attention. Thanks for watching, give a like and subscribe. Peace!